Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. I've finally made my way through quite a lot of citizen cards that we're signing for Gamescom, which is, well, it's going to be this week. Well, actually, it's going to be this week in the future because I'm shooting this just before I head over to Germany, but this will be airing on Monday and I'm shooting it on the Friday. But we're pretty excited. We're working really hard here on Gamescom, so hopefully you guys are going to like the show we put on for you on Friday. I'm actually wearing the t-shirt I got from the THT the Hangar Crew, which was a celebration of last year's Gamescom, so hopefully this year everyone will have just as much fun, maybe more fun. We've got a new venue, 2,000 people. Last one only had about 1,000 people. And we got a bunch of stuff to show, which hopefully you guys will like, and we're looking forward to spending some time and having, well, just talking about Star Citizen. So before I get into the show, which is 10 for the Chairman, which is where I take 10 questions from the subscribers of our community. The subscribers are the subset of our community that contribute extra money every month to allow us to do a higher level of community feedback and content. So this show, Around the Verse, we have the Jump Point magazine that we do every month. It's 50 to 70 pages, usually full of detail, behind the scenes stuff on how we make the ships, you know, some fiction, a whole bunch of other stuff. And then we also sort of do additional stuff for subscribers, some cool flair that goes into the hangars, and some up-and-coming stuff that we'll be working on. So thank you all to enabling us to do a higher level of community interaction, which is, I think, something that makes Star Citizen really special. So thank you to subscribers, and I don't know if Eric Husan Dorsey is a subscriber, but he certainly was very nice to send us a couple of little metal kit ships to make. One is the Wright brothers and one's the F-22 Raptor, which is cool. I actually saw these the other day in a little sort of puzzle toy shop, and I was actually looking at it, maybe I should get that to to work with in my, or build in my copious spare time. Another have a lot, and a book, Eject, the complete history of US aircraft escape systems, which, you know, considering we now have Arena Commander and you can eject, I think that's probably apropos. But you know, Eric writes to us. It's a long letter, so I can't really read all of this. But he's lives out in here in the US, in Maryland, and he's a big fan of Aegis Dynamics because he works in law enforcement, so he drives a Ford Crown Victoria, and so he likes, well, he drives a Ford Crown Victoria off duty as well as, I guess, in duty, because that's pretty much usually the law enforcement car, and that's one of the reasons why he likes the Avengers. That's pretty cool. So thank you, Eric, much appreciated. And let's get on to the 10 questions for 10 for the Chairman. First one comes from Disco Lando, who always makes all those wonderful videos, and asks, have you played any other games with a persistent universe? If so, which ones and for how long did you play them? Which ones do you like? Which ones do you not? Which ones, if any, have influenced your decisions when it comes to the design of the persistent universe? So I think that's an interesting question. I guess it depends on what your definition of a game with a persistent universe is. The simplest could be potentially Demon's Souls, because people can write messages and they persist, but there's not really a lot of other stuff going on there. You know, I would say potentially you could classify an MMO like a World of Warcraft or an EVE Online as particularly a persistent game. I'm just trying to think. I mean, one of the goals that we have on Star Citizen is to have the actual universe persist, but also change and morph over time, and also be reactive to the player actions. So the player actions are actually shaping the universe. And I haven't particularly seen that. I know in CryEngine's Rift that was sort of the idea, and also in Guild Wars 2 that's the idea. But both those games have come out, you know, recently, and unfortunately, over the last 3 years, I've pretty much had my head down working on Star Citizen. So I haven't really had the chance to get in and sort of play any of those ones. So I guess my answer would be I haven't really played any that have done what I would like a game to do in terms of persistence and a universe, and that's kind of why I'm making Star Citizen. So I don't know if that's a good answer to that question, but that is my answer. Next question comes from Strad, who asks, In the long-range plans for development, do you think there will ever be an opportunity for players to join the game without a ship package and take part in the ground activity, travel via shuttle liner, take jobs on ship owners, operators, crews? I think just letting those folks into the universe will win them over into the game as well, perhaps even a guest account option. Yeah, Strad, that's a really good suggestion. It's actually something we've discussed, that perhaps, maybe, instead of a trial period where someone gets to try out a ship, they can enter the universe and they could take a job for hire or be hired by someone, and then if they want to migrate onto ship ownership, then they would have to sort of pay their ship license fee, which would be sort of your initial package to get into the game. So we sort of considered kind of those structures for the longer term stuff, and also if you lose all your credits and you don't want to put more money in, then of course you still should have ways that you can work for other people to earn enough money to get a ship back. And so we're going to have all those mechanics in the game anyway. So I think long term that's a potential way to maybe get some friends in or get other people to play, but short term it's not going to be there, but definitely I think our systems will sort of allow it, so it is a pretty good idea. But I think first off we'd want to get the game working for everyone that sort of backed it, making sure it's all good, and then we sort of would see about how it would get expanded. All right, next question comes from Kantara, who asks, I was curious, if a user hired an NPC in the PU for a specific task and our ship was under attack, what the response of the NPC would be. Will they continue to do their job or anything else that their employer asks at the time based on their individual skill set or level, or become unpredictable, perhaps wanting to give up? How human might they be? Good question. We definitely are going to be setting our NPCs up. I mean, basically the AI that runs the NPCs will be the same AI that will run NPCs not working for you that you may encounter, you may fight. And of course, those NPCs will have we're going to have things like skill level, experience, sort of morale, whether they panic or not. And so I think you'll definitely have, you spend more money to hire a hardened veteran, he probably is not going to freak out in the line of fire, whereas if you have a rookie that was cheap, perhaps he'll run in the middle of a fight. So we'll definitely have some level of AI sort of personality affecting their actions, just like the non-working for you NPCs, because it's essentially going to be the same set and code base. And I think it's kind of cool that maybe you take people in as they get more experienced, they become more loyal to you, or they become even better fighters. And then if you go and hire NPCs from sort of like the work boards or whatever, then you pay a little more for a more hardened mercenary to be on your wing, or if you try to cut corners, perhaps you'll pay the price when you get attacked by pirates. So I think those are all things that we definitely will have in, and I think will be important to making the world feel real. Okay, the next question comes from Arkfade, who asks, will players who focus on racing be able to achieve some sort of sponsorship with other in-fiction companies and be able to fly those names similar to what NASCAR racers do today? Well, I definitely want players to be able to focus on things like racing or doing other stuff. So we're going to definitely have a whole racing series that will happen and exist in fiction, where there will be qualifiers and a championship, and the best racers in the universe will be sort of covered and lauded and win prizes just like they do in the real world. So we're going to do that. The idea of sponsorship is kind of cool. We've actually been kicking around the idea of sort of sponsorship for some of the ships. So maybe we can sort of weave that into the fiction, because again, that's another thing that sort of makes it seem more real. But at the very least, you certainly will be able to compete and have fame against all the other players that are in the Star Citizen universe and be covered on a news report as being the Murray Cup champion of 2945 and all the rest of the stuff. And perhaps we'll do some fun stuff like sponsorship deals. Next question comes from Biggles19840, who asks, with regards to missile locks, has any thought been put into giving different types of missiles different lock-on characteristics like in real life, such as IR missiles having a fixed firing cone that locks on immediately with varying degrees of solid or weak locking? Think the AIM-9 Growl. So yes, I mean, what you see today in Arena Commander is only a partial implementation of the radar, the system with the signatures, and also how the different missiles work. So we're going to have sort of heat-seeking, image recognition, friend or foe, and what we call sort of dumbfire, which are basically kind of rockets. And they will all have, and different systems, different radar systems, different targeting systems, different missiles will all have different characteristics instead, like in terms of like how big their firing cone would be, or the lock-on range, all the rest of the stuff, and how easy they're to shake or not to shake. So you're only just seeing a small amount of what the missile stuff will do. The base system's actually there. We just haven't had time to sort of flesh and finish it out because we're trying to get some of the other stuff working first. But the radar signature system's there, and the missiles all fix into that. We just haven't really delivered all the different kinds of missiles because right now it's all heat-seeking. That's why you can launch flares, and if you launch chaff, that doesn't make a difference. But chaff obviously would be much more important for, say, an image recognition missile than a heat-seeking missile. So I guess yes, like in real life, we will be doing that. Next question comes from Shepard22, who asks, will we have to wear universal language translator to understand the alien languages? Let's say we hit that stretch goal. Or will we have to decipher their stuff like Sumerian tablets, Egyptian hieroglyphs, or how will this work in the PU? So I think we'll definitely have the aliens potentially, well, we'll hear them speaking their language in sort of the cinematic-y stuff. Like if you were doing it in Squadron 42, you'd probably have some subtitles like you would in a movie. But what we would assume is that both parties, if they're advanced anyway, would have sort of a language translator, which is all part of your Moby class. And so you would get a translation of what they were saying to you, and you could say, and they'll get a translation of what you were saying to them. It's kind of the idea, and not so much that you have to learn the foreign language, because I think in the future that probably, you wouldn't have those issues, right? I mean, already right now, if you on the web, Google's translating for you and doing all the rest of the stuff, and we're not very far away from sort of live vocal translations. So I think it will be more along those lines. All right, Robert Lewis asks, at what ranges will capital ships do combat? Will they be slugfests of a few hundred meters, or will they be far enough apart to use missiles as standoff weapons while smaller capitals operate as mid-range screening forces? I think it's too early to tell. I think it would also be up to kind of the two commanders of the various capital ships on how how they want to fight their battle, because you certainly would be able to sort of engage at a long range without getting toe-to-toe, and then some ships would probably be better at toe-to-toe. I mean, if I'm running a carrier, I don't want to bring my carrier in toe-to-toe. I'd be sending out my bombers and torpedo bombers and fighter cover and to keep everyone at bay, and then try and hunt out the foes. But if I've got sort of a battleship, or I've got a ship that has like a strong sort of ship-to-ship punch, but not necessarily sort of space sort of air combat cover, then I would probably try to get in close range. And we're going to sort of allow all those options in our sort of capital ship combat setup stuff, which is what the Foundry 42 team is moving towards. So I'm looking forward to that stuff. We've got some stuff that we'll show at Gamescom that involves not necessarily a capital ship, but at least some more of the cooperative stuff, and then longer term that will get even bigger and cooler. So we'll see. That's, I think, one of the biggest potential promises, or the potential great parts of Star Citizen, is sort of this idea that we can go all the way from small ships up to much bigger ships that you can be on with your friends, and you can fight together as a unit, or be a lone wolf and do all the rest of stuff. So I think the style of combat, much just like the style right now that's happening in Arena Commander, different pilots are fighting different ways. Some are sort of like getting up close and personal, some are booming and zooming. All those things will be sort of optional or up to the player as well as they fight, and then we'll see what the best fighting styles are. I would say it would probably be dependent on the kind of ship that you're using, though, in terms of how to best utilize it. Okay, next question comes from Ajax, who asks, I was curious as to the level of breakdown of the mission boards in the PU. Will organizations have the ability to have a private mission board to set up missions for members to do? So yes, that is absolutely the case. So you can, when you set up a mission, you'll be able to publish it as a public mission, or you'll be able to publish it to your organization or a subset of your organization. It's kind of the way it should work. Or you could be able to publish it to a certain number of organizations, but not all the other ones. So it's sort of up to you when you post a mission who it will be available to or visible to. So I think you can run missions just for your own crew, or you could have it with some friendly organizations, or for everyone. It's sort of up to you. Okay, next question comes from El Duderino, who asks, I was just wondering what number you're aiming at in regards to people, ships occupying the same system or small area in the system. Obviously, space battles are going to be a big thing, especially when trying to control a certain area or object. From our standpoint, we're not quite sure how many we'll be able to get in the same sort of server instance. We'd like to be able to get between 50 and 100 if we possibly could do that, but we're still a ways off right now. I mean, right now we have much above 12 players in Arena Commander, and we're starting to have some sort of performance issues, but there's a lot of optimization that we need to do to address, to fix, and we're also sort of working on some of the back-end net code with things called like dead reckoning and stuff that will sort of greatly reduce the amount of data, so it will make all this easier to have a larger amount of players in the system, but it's probably not likely to be more than about 50 to 100 in any one area or instance. Now, in the actual star system itself, it's sort of built in a way that it could handle tens of thousands of players in that star system. It's just not tens of thousands of players would all be able to see each other all at the same time. They'll just be stacked in different instances, and then we put you in, like in your local area. That's sort of based on who your friends are, who your enemies are, sort of what your game preferences are, and it's sort of dynamically putting you in and out of instances as you fly around. So to you, it should mostly feel like you're in a big universe and you run across a lot of people, because you literally, if you're flying from one planet to another planet, you may move in and out of 4 or 5 different instances. And so that potentially means that you could be, outside of the NPCs, you could be seeing 200-300 players while you're doing that. If it was a really sort of busy populated area. So I think our system hopefully would work quite well. There certainly will not be any equivalent of the EVE, several thousand players all in one big space battle, just because with the detail and fidelity that we have with our ships, we just can't simulate that many. I mean, none of the computers we have, even the most fastest expensive one with the most ridiculous graphics chip, couldn't handle it at kind of what we're doing, although you never know what happens in the future. I'm not promising thousands, but we're definitely going to utilize every single iota of power that we can go, and as much bandwidth we can take that's reasonable for everyone to make the game the best experience possible. Okay, last question for this week's episode comes from Uchu, who asks, concerning exploration gameplay, what gameplay elements / mechanics can players expect from an explorer's lifestyle? Besides scanning for jump points, asteroid fields, anomalies, and derelicts, what other activities can an explorer do? Well, we sort of, we know that exploring is a big deal for people. So, jump points, obviously, asteroid fields, anomalies, derelicts, they're all sort of things that you would try and find. I mean, we're certainly going to let you, even a known star system has most of the space uncharted. So as an explorer, you could fly around to try and find whether it's the asteroid field, the anomaly, or the derelicts, and then chart it. And once you've charted areas, you can either share it with your organization / friends, or you could sell it back to the game to create sort of charted maps for that area that people could pre-buy. We are going to definitely have things like alien artifacts or some ruins on planets that you can go down and discover. So we'll sort of have definitely kind of scavenger hunt style stuff, and something where you maybe have a very short kind of like, okay, I find an artifact and I've got to get 2 other pieces of this artifact, and that will give me a key that will open up this other thing that will allow me to get this rare item that would be really valuable. So there's a kind of a fair amount of that sort of stuff. On exploration, we're sort of thinking of having some areas where you can land on a planet and sort of explore around to look for stuff, go down and some ruins or whatever, but have something that feels like it has a little more substance than, for instance, the Mass Effect, when you had the rover going on the outside of the planet. Of course, that would be sort of limited to areas that would let you land in, and some of that would be pseudo procedurally generated. Not everything will be fully handcrafted in those cases. But yes, basically those are kind of the exploration stuff. So you going and sort of charting open space for like the different areas of interest, going through jump points, and then sort of charting out that system, and maybe landing on some planets that people haven't really spent much time, or going down to somewhere with an archaeological dig, whether it's down on a planet or on an asteroid field. Those are all sort of things that we're thinking would be really fun for people that like to explore. So hopefully you will too. All right, that is the end of this episode of 10 for the Chairman. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank everyone for supporting us in making Star Citizen. I mean, it's a wildly ambitious game, and we wouldn't be able to make it without all your support. So thank you very much. Thank you for the subscribers that kick in the extra amount of money to allow us to do this. And it's been fun, and I will see you at Gamescom. All right, bye guys.